Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. If you're new, my name is Brianna, and today I'm going to be sharing some advice and tips for classroom management for substitute teachers. So let me just start off by saying that I am not a teacher. I am working on becoming a teacher, but I have been subbing since April 2019 for middle and high school, pretty much all subject levels. So this advice and tips will be from my personal experience as a sub, as well as things that I've learned through my course material that I had to study in order to get my certification, as well as things that I've learned from my friends and family members who are teachers and just watching teachers in the classroom. So I have a whole bunch of notes on my phone. I really sat down and thought about things that I have experienced, how they could have gone better, and what I've learned over the course of the last almost year as a sub. So first off, what is classroom management? So I got this definition from weareteachers.com. Classroom management refers to the wide variety of skills and techniques that teachers use to ensure that their classroom runs smoothly without disruptive behavior from students. It boils down to having a structured learning environment with clear rules that promote learning, as well as consequences that diminish or eliminate behaviors that get in the way of learning. And so basically, your goal as a substitute teacher is to ensure that your kids are busy, on task, and not doing anything disruptive or anything wild, basically. And so the main challenge for having a good classroom management system as a sub is that you don't know these kids. So as a teacher, you are able to build a rapport and really get to know these kids, what their behaviors are like, over weeks and months of having them every single day or every other day in your class. As a sub, you're walking into a classroom of 20, 30, even maybe 35, up to almost 40 students that you do not know. And so that is a challenge, is working with kids who are not familiar with you and who you are not familiar with. Also, sometimes whenever there is a sub, the kids are not going to act like they would if their regular teacher were there. And so the main thing of classroom management as a full-time teacher is that you're trying to build structure and have a routine. And so whenever kids come into their class and they see that their teacher is not there and that there's a sub, that's kind of like a break in their normal routine. They may act out, they may push the limits in the way that they would not do if it was their regular teacher, because it's not what they're used to. Bonus challenge of classroom management is being a young sub. I made an entire video about what it's like being young, but that's kind of just an added bonus, especially if their teacher is older and you come in like me, early 20s, mid 20s. That definitely is another factor into how you're going to have to manage your classroom. So let me just hop into some tips and advice for classroom management. So the first thing is that whenever you go into the classroom, the first thing you need to do is thoroughly read all of the notes, directions, instructions that the teacher has left you. There has been a couple of times where my downfall has been missing a particular note or not thoroughly reading all the instructions. So the first thing you need to do is sit down and take the time to really read, whether it's just a post-it note or if it's an entire 2-page typed sheet of directions. Read what the teacher left you. So some of the things that the teacher may leave you are things like reliable students for each class period, students you need to watch out for, seating charts, which can be very useful because kids always want to just sit by their friends whenever there's a sub, and they will try to fool you into believing that that is their assigned seat. Things like medical reports. So super important is that if a kid has some type of medical issue, you need to know about that. And so there was one time where I did not thoroughly read all the teacher's notes, and there was a student who had a medical reason that she was allowed to go to the bathroom whenever she wanted. She did not have to ask, she could just get up and go to the bathroom. It was probably maybe the first month I had been subbing. I did not read that note, and so I kind of got into it with that student because I thought that she was just walking up and leaving the classroom, but little did I know that she is allowed to do that. So you don't want to make that mistake. You want to know everything that's going on and any important information about students that you need to know. Also things like the teacher's rules. Are they allowed to have cell phones? Are they allowed to have food? Are they allowed to have water? You need to know how that teacher runs their classroom, because again, students always love to play that, well, our teacher usually lets us card, but you cannot rely on the kids. I know they're sweet, sweet kids, but they are going to try to take advantage of a sub and push the limit. So you need to go by whatever that teacher wrote down, whatever way that they run their classroom. You need to try to keep that routine going. So yeah, don't fall for that. My teacher usually lets us go by whatever that note or paper says. So the second thing, in order to start off the class on a positive note, you need to be outside at the door during passing period and greet your students when they walk in. If you're just in your classroom with the door closed and sitting at your desk, that really sets the tone for how the kids are going to perceive you and how that class is going to go. So find a doorstop or find something to prop open that door, be at the door, smiling at kids, waving, saying hi, asking how they are, how their day is going, and that will really set a positive tone for the way that class period is going to go. So the first thing once class gets started is let the students know the rules, the expectations, and all of the assignments. So from the beginning, you need to tell them no cell phones, no food, no headphones, whatever the teacher told you to do. You need to set that tone from the very beginning and tell them exactly what they're going to do. So first we're going to do a warm-up, then you have an assignment. It's due by the end of class. It's due when you come back. So let them know exactly what you expect and when the assignments are due. That is key, because if you don't tell them exactly everything from the beginning and then the assignment is due at the end of class, they'll try to say, well, you didn't tell us no cell phone. So be very specific from the beginning exactly what is going to go on during that class period. So once you take attendance, get all the directions out of the way and introduce yourself, next is when the kids are working. So usually the teacher, their goal, like your goal, is to keep the kids busy. You don't want them to have downtime or free time, because that's when there could be some issues and some bad behavior happening. So if they're staying busy and they have work to do, then that's going to prevent all that from happening. So when the kids are working, don't just sit at your desk and just kind of be in your own little world. You need to be watching and listening. Get up and walk around, walk in between the desks, kind of look at what they're doing. I think they say like you're in the power zone, and so when you're walking up and down in between desks, they're going to get on task. They're going to work, or at least pretend like they're working. There's so many times where I'm at my desk and I kind of see that a kid is on their phone or that they're off task, and you don't even have to say anything. Usually if you just get up and kind of just casually walk by and monitor, they will instantly put their phone away or get back on task. So you need to be listening, paying attention, watching them walking around, and being really proactive to preventing possible bad behavior. So that's the next thing on my list, is you want to be proactive. You want to prevent anything bad from happening before it happens. You don't want to be reactive, because then that's just going to make your day and your entire life as a sub a whole lot more stressful. So you need to be watching and listening. Even if they don't think you're listening, you're listening. Even if they don't see you're watching everybody and monitoring the entire classroom to prevent anything bad from happening. So yeah, don't stay at the desk is the main thing. So the next thing is, whenever kids ask to go to the restroom, to their locker, or to wherever, I typically stick to the rule of one person out of the classroom at a time. Whether that's to the restroom, to the nurse, wherever they have to go, one person at a time, and keep track of who is out. So I've had this before where kids play me, and it gets really messy when there's multiple kids out at a time. You don't remember their names, their faces. So rule is one at a time to the restroom. They'll always try to say, well, usually we do this or usually we do that, and that may be true, but I think it's easier just to say, okay, well, today we're doing things this way, one person out at a time. That's not one boy and one girl, that is one person out at a time, so that you can keep track of who is going in and out of your classroom. So the next thing is that whenever you do see misbehavior, you need to correct it immediately. So of course your first method of action is to prevent it, but kids are going to be kids. So the next step is that if you do see anything that is not supposed to be going on, don't ignore it. You need to correct that immediately. But something that I've learned through trial and error, and also they talked about this in my coursework that I'm taking to become a teacher, is that you don't want to embarrass the kids. And so sometimes, let's say that you see somebody on their phone that they know they're not supposed to be on your phone. Instead of saying, hey, Johnny, get off your phone in front of the whole class and really calling him out, I would start by maybe saying like, hey guys, let's make sure we're not on our phones. Just generally addressing the classroom, but they know if you're on your phone, they know that you're talking to them. Sometimes you don't even have to say anything. If I see something going on that I know is not supposed to be happening, sometimes I can just kind of look at that kid, they make eye contact with you, you give them that look, and they know that you're saying like, hey, cut that out, or let's get back on task. Sometimes if the behavior is continuous, like you give continuous warnings, you give them that look and they're still on their phone or still doing something that they're not supposed to be doing, then I will directly walk up to that kid at their desk and whisper. I'm not trying to yell at them or call them out, and just be like, hey Johnny, like I've given you a few warnings, let's put that phone away or else I'm going to have to take it. So first try to get them back on task, but if that doesn't work, then I usually will directly go up into their desk and talk to them. So next is give warnings. So if you say don't be on your phones and the first person you see on their phone, you run up and take it from them, I don't think that's how you should go about doing that. So I think that you should give them warnings whenever you see those misbehaviors, but you need to follow up on your consequences. They're also going to just run all over you. So if I say, hey, let's not be on their phones, and then I directly address Johnny again, and then he's still on his phone, then I'm going to go up and take his phone from him. So you want to give them warnings and try to allow them the opportunity for them to correct their misbehavior, but you need to follow up on whatever consequences that the teacher told you or that you have in place for them. Because if you don't, then you're all just talk and they're not going to follow your rules if you keep asking them to do something but you never have any consequences in place. Okay, so next is be consistent in applying the rules. So if you tell one kid get off your phone but you see another kid on their phone, you can't just ignore that. If you tell one kid you gotta wait until 15 minutes in the class to go to the restroom, don't let another kid go to their locker. So you have to be consistent in applying the rules and treating all kids equally. So another thing for correcting misbehavior is whenever you correct that behavior, you want to tell them the behavior you want to see. So I keep using this phone example, but kids are always on their phone, so it's a pretty relevant example. So if you see kids on their phones, instead of saying, hey, put your phone away, get off your phone, you want to say like, hey guys, let's stay on task, let's make sure we're not on our phones, and be more positive in saying that the behavior you want to see. If you hear kids using profanity and cussing, instead of saying, hey, stop cussing, don't say that. Say, hey guys, let's use better language, let's use a better choice of words. And so things like that, you want to say the behavior that you want to see, because whenever you're using that negative, like, don't do that, don't say that, you're kind of in a way reinforcing that bad behavior, if that makes sense. That's another thing that I read throughout my coursework studies, and also that I've just seen actually works better in practice.